So I'll be in John chapter number 19. Let's welcome our radio, television, internet, Roku, church app audience around the world that are listening today. I'm in the book of John chapter 19, and for sake of time, because of the content of my message, I want to read one verse, but what a powerful verse. Jesus is hanging on the cross, dying for the sins of the world. And by the way, I must stop and say this before I read my text. I am so honored to have my mother-in-law in the house of God today. I want you to make her welcome. I overlooked her, and I'm sorry. Make my mother-in-law, give her some hand, give her some love today, church. Thank you so much. In John 19, Jesus is hanging on the cross. The angels are not there to strengthen him. His disciples has forsaken him, and God has turned his back on him. But in verse number 25, now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother. Mary was there when the angels were gone. Mary was there when God had forsaken him. Mary was there when the disciples were on the run. She was not only there because she was a Christian, she was there because she was his mother. And if there's ever a time a mother wants to be by her child, it's when they're hurting and when they're suffering. There are some things that every mother wants to know about their child. The constant evolution against the original foundation and direction of being a mother and a father makes it harder for me every year to deal with the family unit that God intended it to be. When a nation is confused about its sexual orientation as well as twisting the parental roles in the home, it comes to a point where dealing with basic Bible truth becomes offensive, distorted, and you even get categorized as being a sexist. It seems in this generation that if you're only known as being a mother, it should make you feel cheap, worthless, and unimportant. But motherhood demands many roles and sacrifices that no man could ever fulfill. I'm glad God allowed me to be a man, because I'd probably be in jail for murder. I can't handle kids like my wife can. Men don't have that capability. You women get short with us because we have to have breathing room. I can't handle kids crawling on me all day, every day, and throwing up in dirty diapers and pinching their fingers and whining over toys. I'd be on enough antidepressant medicine to kill an elephant. I got to have breathing room. I got to have a motorcycle. I got to get out in the yard. I got to cut grass. I got to have some downtime. Men can't do what you ladies do. And especially this generation, everybody's hyper and nuts. Kids don't even take naps anymore. My wife had some of our grandkids not long ago for a few days. She does that without telling me ahead of time, so that I can psychologically prepare myself for the invasion that's about to take place. And after a couple of days of the kids bouncing off the walls and going nuts, I said, Mom, don't they make pills to settle kids down? Aren't they advertising that there's medications? She said, I'm not giving those kids pills. I said, well, I'll take them, but one of us has got to have some relief. God intentionally made woman to be able to handle motherhood on her own. I say a special congratulations to what we call single mothers. Those of you that have stepped up to the plate and are working 2 part-time jobs and are doing without to put food on the table, clothes on your kids' back, and making sure they get a good education. because some sorry heathen wouldn't pick up his responsibility to be what he needs to be in his home. Now, I preach straight here and I preach hard here. I don't make any exceptions for anybody. But if you teenage punks are big enough to drop your drawers and get a girl knocked up, you ought to be big enough to pay the bills, be involved in that baby's life, and take care of that child all the days of its life. I want to say to you as a pastor, it's hard preaching on Mother's Day. It's getting very difficult for me because so many mothers have strayed far from the true meaning of what a mama is anymore. Today, my heart is broke. I was crying earlier in my study today because I've got kids sitting here today that know that everything I'm about to preach against, their own mother fell short of what she should and could be. So I want to say to all of our kids that are here, that are from what we call broken homes or single-parent homes. Not long ago, we stood 33 young people and kids on this platform, and only 3 of them live with their biological moms and dads. So when this happens in a society that's an evolution against God and the institution and the unit of the home, it becomes very difficult for me on what to say and how to be balanced in what I'm saying, because I don't want to hurt anybody intentionally. But I want to say to every girl and every boy here that maybe your mama has taken a wrong road in life. Maybe mom's made some bad decisions, and maybe mom ain't even, maybe she's not even in your life today. I want to say that as part of your spiritual family, you're sitting among your spiritual moms and dads, and we want to be your biggest cheerleader, and we want to encourage you to be what you should be and what you need to be. There's something about a mama that never gets away from a kid. A lot of things about mom you never get away from. The whippings. I was in a meeting Friday night, and a woman was sitting there with a plastic spoon with 4 little kids, and I thought, oh, precious memories, precious memories. My son Paul said that my wife beat him so much with a wooden spoon that he has Magic Chef imprinted on one of the backs of his rear. But there's something about mom that leaves an everlasting impression, whether it be good or whether it be bad. I went to see Miss Lisa's daddy, Miss Kay. I went to see your husband the other day. And Mr. Wally has Alzheimer's, and he doesn't know who I am, and he doesn't know his family, and he doesn't know who he is. And I walked in, and for the first time in a couple of months, he was crying uncontrollably. And I walked in, and I sat down beside him, and I put my arms around him, and I said, do you know who I am? He said, I do, but I don't know your name. I said, Mr. Wally, I'm your preacher. And Miss Kay was crying uncontrollably. And I said, Mr. Wally, what you crying about? He said, you see that corner over there, preacher? That's my daddy laying in that casket. And I need my mama. I can't bury my daddy without my mama. Now here's a man that doesn't even know he's in a nursing home. He has no idea what he just ate 30 minutes ago. And I know 5 minutes after I walk out that door, he will never even remember that I've been to see him. But he never forgot his mama. I don't understand if when women are young and they're busy raising kids and feeding them and beating them and putting them to bed and running them through the shower. I really don't know, ladies, if you understand the dramatic impact you're having on our lives as children. Oh, I wish my mom was still living. She would be so proud of me. Mom taught me all my life that you change underwear every day in case you go to the hospital. Anybody else taught that as a kid? And I've often wondered, what if I didn't change my underwear and went to the hospital? Here they wheel me in the emergency room. They pull down the sheet. I don't have clean underwear on. Put him to the side. Let him die. He's got dirty panties on. Let him die. And it's amazing how that stuff sticks with you in the most unusual circumstances. When that drunk hit my wife and I going down the interstate a couple of years ago, and we flipped 4.5 times down the interstate, and then slid hundreds of feet upside down before we came to a stop. They regenerated our accident, and they found out that once we left the air, the car went a whole turn and another half a turn in the air before it ever hit the ground the first time. And it's crazy. I'm almost 8 or 9 feet in the air, 65 miles an hour, corkscrewing down the interstate. No lights. It's so dark. My wife and I don't even know what side of the road we're on. And this is the truth. When I hit the interstate, you know what I said? I got clean panties on. They'll save me at the hospital. Now, I'm not saying that they were that way after I flipped 4.5 times. But they were when I started. Some things every mother wants to know about their child. Mary wanted to be where Jesus was, even through his time of pain, because there's something about a mama that just eternally invests in her children. I began to do a survey several months ago, getting ready for this message, and I found out the top categories, not nationwide, but worldwide. I found out the top categories that mothers are specifically concerned about when it comes to the raising, the welfare, and the future of their children. I want to share a few of those with you quickly. Number one, every mother wants to know that their child is healthy. From the moment a mother knows that she's with child until her last breath on earth, she stays concerned about the health of her children. It's mama that's there when you get a scratch, when you have a pain or a physical irritation. It's mom there that helps repair and heal our wounds. When kids get hurt, they don't run to dad. I've never heard a kid get hurt and say, "Dad!" Because I know dads don't care. A kid runs up to dad and says, "Look at my scratch." "Oh, shut up and get over it, you brat. I had worse than that before I fell out of the crib. Get over it, you'll be fine." Kids don't go to dad. Dad don't know how to share that sympathy. They run to mom. They know mom cares about their health. It's mom that kisses their boo-boos. I ain't kissing nobody's boo-boo. It's mom that wipes the pain away. If you want to get a woman on fire and see 7 legions of devils enter her body, mess with her kids. You want to see the depravity of man? Go to a ball game and let there be a controversial call made. She-bears come out of everywhere with their claws out. Now, don't misunderstand me. Mom will beat the devil out of them, but you better keep your hands off of them, because moms live to make sure their kids are healthy. A true story. A boy was raised by a single parent. He not only didn't have a dad and he only had a mom, but his mom was blind. And not rightly so, but the older he got, the more self-conscious he became of the fact that his mother was blind. By the time he got in high school, he didn't like to be caught out in public with his mother because of what the other kids would say. So he began to neglect his mother, shy away from her, and isolate himself from her. A year after that, Brother Doug, he graduated from high school, had completely tried to eliminate his mother from his life because she was blind, and went off to college. Stayed gone 4 years, never stayed in contact with his blind mother. Only child, no dad, but mom's blind. He was embarrassed because she would stumble in front of people or have to grab onto things, or he would have to lead her by her hand. And he was so embarrassed and ashamed that his mother was blind. After finishing college, he came back, not far from the town where he was raised. His mother lived just a matter of minutes across in another county. But he was so busy with life and so embarrassed of her condition that he never went to see her. One Friday night, while having a party at his apartment, there was a knock at the door. He wasn't expecting anybody else, and he opened the door, and somebody had brought his blind mother to see him. He had hid it from all of his college buddies and his acquaintance that his mother was blind. When she stood at the door and both of her eyes were set and not moving, one of the drunk men said, "Who is that old woman anyhow?" He said, "Oh, she's just an old lady from the neighborhood." He pushed her out of the door facing, shut the door behind him, walked her back out to the sidewalk and said, "Don't you ever come to my home again. Don't you ever embarrass me again. I'm ashamed of you. You're blind. People make fun of blind people. Don't you ever come around me again." And years went by, And the old silver-haired lady died alone. Upon her death, they called the son, being the only sibling, and said, what belongings your mother has, she's not only left you the house, but everything that's in it. So he goes, Brother Guy, and starts rummaging through the paperwork of his mother to find out about a will or bank accounts or inheritance or life insurance. He staggers over a piece of paper that was in an envelope addressed to him. Sitting in the floor of his deceased mother's house, he opens the envelope, and this is what the letter said. Dear son, not long after birth we realized you were blind. And we didn't know what to do. The last thing I wanted you to do was go through life without sight. So when you were too little to remember, we had surgery. And I gave you the retinas of my eyes so that you could see. I wish you the best. And may you always be happy. There's not a mama in this building, a real mama, that wouldn't do the same thing. I want to say to every one of you kids, if you got a good mama, if you do have one, you ought to get up every day and lift your hands toward heaven and thank God that you got a mama that's concerned about your health. And before you smart off to your mama the next time, may I remind you, she's the one that wiped your butt for the first 3 years of your life. She's the one that fed you. She's the one that got up in the middle of the night. She's the one that rocked your fever. She's the one that's done without. She's the one that sacrificed her life for yours. You ought to thank God you got a good mama. Real mamas want their children to be happy. Not only healthy, but she wants them to be happy. From the moment you get that kid in your hand the first time, we go to any extreme we possibly can just to get a simple smile from that brat. Moms go from acting silly out in public. My wife used to embarrass me to death. She'd get all engulfed in that kid, and we're out with other people and tables and folks sitting around, and I look over there and she's going, That's stupid. I said, honey, just shut up and leave that kid alone and put NyQuil in its bottle and knock it out for a while where we can have some peace and quiet. But mothers act silly and they crawl in the floor and they play horseback just to see you laugh one time. Mama lives a life where she sacrifices a lot of time, spends a lot of money, and goes to a lot of places to do nothing except sit there and watch you laugh. Many times her life is unhappy and unfulfilled so that your life can be filled with good times and great memories. But what you don't understand to a mama, the smile of that child back to mama is the fulfillment of all pay that mama would ever know or want. It's mama that goes that extra mile and does without to make you happy. My children were not the kind of kids that went to the store and every time they did, they said, I want this, I want that, I want that. We didn't put up with that bunch of nonsense. You went to the store, you shut up, and if we wanted to get you something, we did, and if we didn't shut up, get over it. Life will go on, you'll still live tomorrow. But I'll never forget one time we were living on the road in the bus, and we were making about $6,000 a year. And my oldest daughter was a little girl, and she came to me with a book. And she said, Daddy, could you imagine what it would be to hold a doll like this? No, because I'm not into dolls. And if you fellas are into dolls, you need to get to a doctor, get a hormone shot, because there's something bad with a boy that wants to run around with a baby doll. But when I saw the price of the doll, I was sure I'd never held a doll like that. But then I went to bed and remembered that in her whole life, that was the first time my daughter ever asked me for anything. So I remember going to my wife with that little booklet with the doll, and I said, I don't know how in the world we would pay for this. We don't have any credit cards, and we sure don't have any money. And I don't want to go back to selling pot and go to jail and mess up my ministry. And can you imagine for months, just $1 here and $1 there and a little change here, my wife adjusted everything in our life. And months went by, months, so that she could see the smile of a little girl. That included taking away grocery money. That included taking away clothing money. That included taking away ever the thought of going out and eat during that period of time. And months went by just so she could put that baby in the arms of her daughter and see her smile. Every mama wants to see her child smile. Every mama wants her child not only to be healthy and happy, but she wants them to be hugged, loved. More than games and toys and fun, a child is incomplete without true love from somebody. Oh, Mom, you don't understand. Those hugs and kisses and squeezes, they bring a sense of worth and value to us. It's comfort, it's security, it's strength to that little one. Every time, Mom, you pick up that little boy and little girl and you just squeeze them and say, give me some loving, you don't understand. You're incorporating comfort and security and strength that'll follow that child throughout the rest of their days. With every time you embrace that child, they can witness your approval, your proudness of them, and your satisfaction in their love. May I say to you, mothers, the strongest words you'll ever say to your kid is not stop, shut up, I'll beat you to death. It's simply, I love you. Every child ought to have a recent memory of the words of love coming from the lips of their mother. Let me tell you something, Mom. You may think your kid's biggest need is an Xbox, a $700 phone, or a $200 pair of tennis shoes. But I'm going to tell you, your child's greatest need on earth is your unconditional love. That they're not perfect, but you love them. You may not agree with them when they grow up, but you must love them. Years ago, I'd taken a boy and girls home singing group to Florida. I was in Tampa, Florida. And we were staying in a motel. And the little boys that was in the singing group got around the bed to pray with me. And I said, boys, is there anything y'all want to pray about in particular? And a little 10-year-old boy, 10 years old, raised his hand and said, I got a prayer request. I said, well, what is it, son? He said, my mama dropped me off at this boy's home, and I've never heard from her since. And I don't know my daddy. And for Christmas, I don't want toys. I don't want gifts, and I don't want games. I want you to pray that my mama will send me a letter telling me she loves me. If she would just send me a Christmas card with the 3 words, I love you, on it. That's all I will ever want for Christmas again. Mama never has to this day sent that card. And I know it's true because now he's my son-in-law. Mama, when's the last time you sent your kid a card? When's the last time you called them on the phone or you sent them a text? When's the last time you embraced them? The last time you were together and put your arms around them and said, there's one thing you've got to know and I want you to always know. I love you. Moms not only want their children to be hugged, this one will blow your mind. The survey said moms want their children to be hard workers. Are you kidding me? Moms want to pass that drive to work and attain and excel onto their children. Mothers understand that hard work makes you feel positive about life, more determined about being a winner, and more thankful for what you accumulate in life. That's why your kids need to have chores and obligations. It's a crying out loud shame when you teenage boys are laying on the couch playing with a remote while your dad's outside cutting the grass and your mama's weed eating the grass. I think somebody, bless God's got something backed up and wrong. You daddies need to go in the house and flip that couch over and put Junior's little butt out in the yard and let him learn to sweat every once in a while. Let him break a fingernail every once in a while. Let him learn what it's like. Yeah. I knew I'd lose some of you there. I knew I was going to lose you there. Your little brat, a good day's work, we'd have to put him on a ventilator for a month. Don't let your kids sleep in the noon, play around all day, and then lay around all evening. You got to teach them life, bless God, isn't a vacation. It's a journey filled with decisions and responsibilities, and if you don't train them, they'll be unfit for their future. Teach your kids to work. My father was a diesel mechanic for Ford Motor Company. Oh, I was so happy when summer would let out. No school. Dad would give me 5 days off. And the rest of the summer, I took tractor trailers apart and put motors and transmissions in them. Here I am, a 10-year-old boy, working every day, grease up to my elbows. My friends are riding by on their new bicycles. They're talking about going to the slippery slide. They're all going to Disney World. They're all going to Orlando. They're all going to Euclid Beach and all the other highlights in Ohio where you could go. And here I am in Greece up to my arms, a 10-year-old boy, putting a 6-speed Allison automatic air shift transmission in a tractor trailer. And I'm wondering, why don't I have a bike? Why ain't I out on the road? Did you know that same crowd right now, if you twisted every one of them together, they're not worth $1? But my daddy taught me to work. And when I was 18 years old, I owned my own tractor trailer repair company. I owned my own company as an 18-year-old boy and fixed tractor trailers on my own. I'm going to say to you parents, it's not going to kill Junior to break a sweat, bless God. And you mamas need to quit raising your boy like a little girl and get the panties off of him and get the high heels off of him and put a pair of coveralls on him, bless God, and throw him out in the yard and let him be a boy. They want them to be hard workers. I want to close with this. Every mother, even though they may not be ready, every mother wants to know their child will be in heaven if they die. When it's all said and done, the truth of the matter is we're all dying. The sad reality is death is quickly coming upon all of us. The heart of a true mother should be to make sure that not only she is ready and equipped for heaven, but she also wants the assurance that her children are ready for heaven. Mother, you have miserably failed if you had not set the example to your children on how to get to heaven when they die. I don't care what kind of education you give them, how big of a house, and how many new cars you buy them. If you fail to point them to how to get to heaven when they leave this world, you have failed as a mother. I'd rather be a mother and live in a shack with no electricity and no running water and raise my kids on clothes from the Salvation Army and let them know how to be born again and raise them in the house of God and teach them how to go to heaven when they died, than to be a millionaire without God. Every child ought to have the comfort in knowing that mama's going to heaven when she dies. Every mama ought to have that assurance that their children are ready to go to heaven when they die. We had a lady in our community we tried to win to God. Did my best to get her to God. She was a rebel. She raised children that were rebels. And her son got to messing around with a married woman. And her husband came home one night early and caught them together. He jumped through the glass window and went running through the snow. The husband pulled a pistol and shot him 3 times in his back. Left him laying in his own blood in the snow. The EMS came out and rescued Danny and took him to the hospital. I remember going to the hospital and them telling Danny that he was paralyzed from the chest down. Young boy, not even 21 years old. He couldn't talk, and I leaned over the bed and I said, Danny, I know you're paralyzed, but think about it. If you'd have died, you'd have been in hell. And he took a piece of paper and he wrote on the paper, I'd rather be in hell, and stabbed the pencil through the paper. And 19 days later, I stood at the foot of his bed, both his lungs locked up and stopped, and I watched Danny go to hell with his eyes wide open. When they made the arrangements at the funeral home, I'll never forget, they called me and said, Brother Kidd, get up here and get up here now. I said, viewing's not for several hours. They said, there's the biggest mess up here you've ever seen in your life. Please get up here. I remember Brother Snap flying up to that funeral home there, located in that town where I lived. I didn't embalm there many a time. When I opened up the front door, I heard the voice of a woman yell, no! And I knew who it was. That was Danny's mama. And the funeral director met me and said, Preacher, you've got to help us. We don't know what to do. We're getting ready to call the police. I walked in the viewing room. It was supposed to be hours before anybody was there. And that little frail, wicked mama that wouldn't get right with God, her son died, a whoremonger, a drunk. She was leaned over into that blue box and was pulling so hard on his coat, it was not only trying to lift him out of the casket, but it almost flipped it off the barrier. And I went up and I put my arm around her and I said, now, honey, this ain't going to fix nothing. She ignored me and she looked in the cold face of Danny, and this is what she said. Son, if you don't get out of this casket, people are going to really believe you're dead. You're not dead. Daddy, you can't be dead. Please, son, get up out of this casket and let's go home. Everybody thinks you're dead, but Mama knows you're not dead. Come on, son, get up. And I leaned over and I said, now, honey, this ain't going to fix anything. Danny's gone. There's nothing you or I or anybody else can do. He's gone. And if I live to be 100, I'll never forget what happened. She let go of the lapels of his coat and spun around and grabbed mine and almost jerked my neck through the back of my coat. And she dug her elbows into my chest and she said, if he's gone, then you tell me he's in heaven. Tell me that he's in heaven. There's no way I can bury my baby and not knowing he's in heaven. Please tell me Daddy's in heaven. I knew Danny had died drunk, a whoremonger without God. And I said, honey, I promise you God will do right. He's a righteous judge. God will do what he said he would do in his word. He will honor his word. And Danny's in the hands of a just God. And what I say and don't say isn't going to change where your son's at. She said, but oh, how can I live not knowing my son's in heaven? Oh, you mamas better listen to me. If you're going to get concerned about your kids being in heaven, it's too late when you stand by the casket. It's too late when you're by the graveside. It's too late when they're buried in the ground. You better find out while they're alive and well. You mothers ought to make sure you're saved. You daddies ought to make sure you're saved. You're not going to heaven unless you've been born again. You're not going to heaven on daddy's coattail and mama's apron. You got to be born again. You wasn't born a Christian. You may have been born into a Christian home, but you've got to be born again yourself. You got to personally receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe. And ladies and gentlemen, whether it's your child or whether it's mine, none of them will ever walk the street of gold and embrace the hand of God unless they've been born again. Jesus said, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. I'm not asking you if you're a Baptist, a Methodist, a Catholic, a Lutheran, or a Muslim, or a moron, or a Mormon. I'm asking you, have you been born again? Have you received Jesus Christ? When the family circle gets to heaven, are you going to be there? Or will the circle be broken forever because you have died without God? Let me say this to your mothers and I'm done. How can you mothers claim to love your children, but yet you're ready to die without God? Do you know the mindset you're leaving your children in because they don't really know if you're saved or not? Think about it. You get a call in the night, Brother Randy, your mother's died, but you don't know if she's saved. And you got to live the rest of your life wondering, is my mama in heaven or is my mama in hell? What mama would want to leave their child in that kind of mental despair? If you loved your family and you believe this Bible, every mama in this building ought to make sure before you walk out that door that you know your name has been recorded in heaven, and when it's goodbye down here, it'll be hello up there. Because when you do that, you find out what life is really all about. Let's give the Lord a hand in the house of God today.
These are the days of the